Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. My name is Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. 160th day of the war in Ukraine. Russian forces continue to intensively attack Donbass. However, in the vicinity of Kherson, Ukrainians are increasingly taking the initiative. Meanwhile, the first ship with Ukrainian grain held by the Russians left the port of Odessa. Fierce fighting for Donbass continues. The Russians shot, among others, the villages of Avdiivka, Torezhk, Bakhmut, Soledar, and Mykolaiivka. The occupiers attacked targets in the Donetsk region with the use of aviation, artillery, and Grad and Uragan missile sets. The situation on the battlefield has not changed significantly over the last 24 hours. Fierce fighting continues in the Donbass and in the Kharkiv region. The struggle for the south of our country continues. On July 28th, Russian troops carried out precise shelling of the so-called filter camp in Olenivka in eastern Ukraine, where Ukrainian prisoners of war from Azovstal were held. Several dozen people died as a result of the attack. An international investigation into the massacre is ongoing. According to preliminary data from international experts, Ukrainian prisoners of war in the so-called Russian filter camp in Olenivka in eastern Ukraine were killed with thermobaric weapons. The area of Kherson is the weakest section of the Russian front. This is where the Ukrainians are focusing their counter-offensive. Kherson now has a symbolic and psychological significance for Ukrainians who need victories. So far, they have managed to take control of the Russian logistics and transport routes in the occupied territories of the Kherson Oblast. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Zbigniew Rau, is in Kiev visiting Bucha, which was destroyed by the Russian army. The chief of Polish diplomacy also plans to meet with the highest authorities of Ukraine, headed by President Volodymyr Zelensky. We are determined to stay in Ukraine and support it in overcoming its challenges, as well as assisting in post-war rebuilding and reconstruction. I am convinced that the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe will play a key role in this process. As previously announced, U.S. President Joe Biden has approved another aid package for Ukraine worth $550 million. It will include missiles for HIMARS sets and 155mm artillery. The new military aid package from the U.S. is another investment in the security of NATO's eastern flank and support for democracy in the European Union. Our artillerymen are ready to turn night into day to expel the Russian invaders from Ukraine. Thank you to President Biden and the U.S. Secretary of Defense. Meanwhile, the first vessel to export Ukrainian grain to world markets will be anchored in Istanbul tonight. According to the agreement between Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the UN, at least one ship per day is to depart from the port of Odessa and two other Ukrainian ports. A ship with a load of 26,000 tons of corn left Odessa on Monday, but it is hard to believe that Russia will not try to cut off Ukrainian exports. Russia has consistently caused hunger in African and Asian countries, which have traditionally imported a lot of Ukrainian goods. And now, in conditions of extreme heat in Europe, the price crisis and shortage of food are also threatening some European countries. 16 more ships are ready to go. We are ready to make an appropriate contribution to the stabilization of the global food market.
The ships that will go in and out of Odessa port will be done. Those decisions will be taken by the port authorities of Odessa in terms of how much space they have on the berths. Obviously, there are a number of ships that have been in Odessa for quite some time. So, it would be fair to say that the port is congested. As soon as they give the clearance for more ships to come in, those ships will come in. But those will be commercial decisions and operational decisions taken by the Odessa port. The framework that we have will be there to facilitate that movement of ships both in and out with the inspection regime that we've talked about.
Each day of delay in the transport of Ukraine agricultural produce is a risk of hunger in African countries, but also losses counted in millions for Ukrainian farmers. We had a good harvest of various grains this year. We were satisfied, but we are only now starting to sell our grain, and we have to pay taxes and bear the current costs. In September, we need to start sowing the crops that we want to harvest in 2023. And at the moment, we cannot do that because we are unable to sell our grain, which now costs 2 to 3 times less than it did before the war. During the 5 months of the war, more than 20 million tons of grain were stuck in Ukraine. The consequences of a supply interruption are felt around the world and are exacerbating the food crisis. The ship bound for the Lebanese port of Tripoli is carrying only 26,000 tons of corn. Odessa alone currently has 17 ships docked with a total cargo of 600,000 tons of grain. To commemorate the 78th anniversary of the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising, yesterday, just after 5 p.m., a march started from Rondo Dmowskiego, organized by the Independence March Association. While walking together and paying tribute to the insurgents and murdered civilians, remember that we should be worthy of their ideology. The president of the association appealed to the gathered people.
Marsz zakończył się ogromnym sukcesem.
The march was a huge success. Truly, this is a huge event, an event of a scale increasingly equal to even the Independence March. Great atmosphere, great people, attendance record of about 30,000 people who walked with us in this march. A march without any disturbances, without any unexpected events. I would like to invite Mr. President Rafał Trzaskowski to this march for next year, so that he will not try to disturb us again. And there will be a place for him in this march, if he can be among Polish patriots, unless some other issues determine not to participate in such a large event, the largest event commemorating the Warsaw Uprising. You are cordially invited. We will be able to march together, because this event and other historical events from World War II, but not only those, should unite us, not divide us.
Wydarzeniu upamiętniającym powstanie warszawskie.
Americans have killed the world's most wanted terrorist, the head of Al-Qaeda, one of the co-organizers of 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. Ayman al-Zawahiri was killed in Kabul in a drone strike. The information was confirmed by President Joe Biden. Zawahiri, an Egyptian surgeon who had a $25 million bounty on his head, helped coordinate the 9/11 attacks that killed nearly 3,000 people. U.S. officials speaking on the condition of anonymity said the United States carried out a drone strike in the Afghan capital Kabul on Sunday morning at 6:18 a.m. local time.
My fellow Americans, on Saturday, at my direction, the United States successfully concluded an airstrike in Kabul, Afghanistan, that killed the emir of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more. That no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out.
U.S. intelligence determined with high confidence that the man killed was Zawahiri. A senior administration official told reporters no other casualties occurred. Zawahiri continued to pose an active threat to U.S. persons, interests, and national security, the official said on a conference call. His death deals a significant blow to Al-Qaeda and will degrade the group's ability to operate. There were rumors of Zawahiri's death several times in recent years, and he was long reported to have been in poor health. His death raises questions about whether Zawahiri received sanctuary from the Taliban following their takeover of Kabul in August 2021. The official said senior Taliban officials were aware of his presence in the city.
And to those around the world who continue to seek to harm the United States, hear me now. We will always remain vigilant, and we will act. And we will always do what is necessary to ensure the safety and security of Americans at home and around the globe. Today, we remember the lost. We commit ourselves to the safety of the living, and we pledge that we shall never waver from defending our nation and its people. Thank you all, and may God protect our troops and all those who serve in harm's way. We will never give up.
The drone attack is the first known U.S. strike inside Afghanistan since U.S. troops and diplomats left the country in August 2021. The move may bolster the credibility of Washington's assurances that the U.S. can still address threats from Afghanistan without a military presence in the country. Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi arrived in Taipei this evening. This is the third stop on her tour of Asia. The visit to Taiwan does not please the authorities in Beijing, who consider it a provocation. The plane with Pelosi was followed by 300,000 people on the flight radar. Chinese, Taiwanese, and U.S. armies have been put on high alert. Nancy Pelosi is leading the U.S. congressional delegation on a tour of Asia-Pacific countries. Yesterday, the Speaker of the House of Representatives met with Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. This morning, the delegation was in Malaysia. Visits to South Korea and Japan are still planned in the following days. However, the official schedule of the visit did not mention a visit to Taiwan. 2 hours ago, however, the plane with Pelosi landed at the airport in Taipei. Tomorrow, the Congresswoman is scheduled to meet with President Tsai Ing-wen. And finally, 3-year-old Brazilian twins who were born conjoined at the head have been separated in Brazil. Brothers Bernardo and Arthur Lima underwent a total of 7 surgeries. The last surgery lasted more than 27 hours. Nearly 100 members of the medical staff took part in the surgeries. The boys now face a long rehabilitation. I was so desperate these days because I could not handle the diagnosis. Arthur and Bernardo Lima were born in a rural part of northern Brazil in 2018. They shared part of the brain and a main vein that carries blood back to the heart. The twins underwent several operations in Rio under the direction of Paulo Niemeyer, State Brain Institute and Gemini Untwined in the UK. I talked to Adriele and I told her I believe we were capable of separating the children. I learned the phrase, when you have 1% of possibility, you have 99% of faith. After several months of research, preparation, and using virtual reality projections of the twins based on CT and MRI scans, the twins were separated in successful surgery. The twin boys will soon begin their 6 months of rehabilitation at the hospital, and after the operation, they were able to lie on a bed face-to-face for the first time. Arthur and Bernardo are the oldest craniopagus twins with a fused brain to have been separated. According to Gemini Untwined, 1 in 60,000 births result in conjoined twins, and only 5% of these are joined at the head. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But from me, it's have a wonderful evening.